Education special meeting. It's Monday, February 23rd at 6 p.m. will be a just comments. The special meeting of the Vermilion Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. There is time for a public participation during the meeting as indicated on the agenda, Vermilion Board Bylaw 0165.1. Call to order, please. Call to roll.
Mr. Benson.
Here.
Mrs. Stepp.
Here.
Mrs. Russell.
Here.
Mrs. Treese.
Here.
4 members present.
All right. Next, we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. Everybody would stand and face the flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have a portion on here for public participation. We were wanting to do that after the presentation because I think that some of those questions that you all might have will be answered during that, but we will get back to it. Just want to let you know. As part of that public participation, it's for the agenda items only. This time is allotted for the community members to speak to the board regarding an item on the agenda. If you have already registered your name up to sign to speak, please, we'll get to you. If you haven't, I can bring it over to you if you would like to speak. Want to go ahead and start with your guys' presentation?
Okay. Thank you, President Benson. I'm here today to make a recommendation to the board to approve a reduction in force for the 26-27 school year for the listed certified and classified staff, which I'll get to in a second. But first, the board is here this evening to perform what is at once both a vital community function and the least desirable task that they're ever called upon to do, which is make tough decisions that impact people's lives. None of us here at this table take these decisions lightly or make them without great deliberation and considerable thought. What you're going to see in here tonight is a small glimpse into the collaborative work of our administrators over weeks and months of time. It's my intent to place tonight's reductions in the context of our overall financial and enrollment picture, first of all, and I'd like to speak second of all about some of the steps that we've taken and will take to minimize the number of position reductions that we're recommending today. I'm going to start with a couple of key points to answer the question, why are we here and why is this necessary right now? First of all, last year's failure of the bond issue, plus some rising costs of just about everything that we pay for here in the district, are exerting pressure on the budget to the point where we are now in deficit spending. So we are now just using existing general fund balances to address emergencies where facilities are concerned and eating away at what was a small budget surplus. Second, today's cuts are a part of the overall cost reduction picture. I'll be detailing some recent cuts that have been made, other proposed cuts, and possible future cuts as well. And finally, these proposed reductions are sufficient for now. If the November renewal levy passes, this levy will be called a fixed sum levy, and I'll mention this again at the end of the meeting, but in November, a vote for this levy will actually lower your property tax bills slightly, but it keeps us at the level of funding that we've had for several years, as you'll see. Everything we do, every dollar and expenditure of revenue and expenditure needs to be understood first through the lens of student enrollment. We spend a lot of time thinking about improving teaching and learning and making decisions about what programs and curriculum to provide. In the end, the number of students we have pre-K through 12 drives our funding and is thus a huge factor in what we can provide. Vermilion's enrollment trend is clear. This is K-12. Compared to 2016, we have 22% fewer students. Vermilion's enrollment boomed through the 80s and 90s and has slowly dwindled ever since. This decline in the number of young people in our district is reflected all over Ohio if you look at other districts. By the way, we have a graying population in Ohio. fewer younger people. The number of adult staff members here has expanded and contracted to match rising and lowering enrollment over the years. For example, recently I led a group of people from the class of 1985 through the building. They were here for their 40th reunion. They wanted to look around. After walking around and talking with them for a while, hearing about the 3 home ec classes that used to be over here and 2 industrial arts classes with 2 teachers that used to be down at that end of the building, I finally asked them, how many people were in your class? There were 250. Our kindergarten class has 100 students. Enrollment drives state funding through a funding formula, so it's a big deal. Much of what you're going to hear us talk about over the next few months has to do with local property tax revenue. But when the size of the overall pie shrinks, for whatever reason, it leads us to where we are today, faced with the need to cut costs. Part of the challenge here is that just because enrollment decreases, many of our costs don't decrease. For example, we're not paying any less for gas and electricity than we were 5, 10, 15 years ago. I'm sure you all understand that. This is a look at our current K-12 enrollment with the 12th grade on the left side, the class of 26, and the class of 2038, which is our kindergarten class on the right side. When we look at the number of students in our district right now, you can see this trend playing out, even over the span of age groups we have in the buildings. There are only 3 classes left in the district with more than 130 students, and they'll be gone within 5 years. The highlighted portion, the red circle, is our current K-5 population, and you can see the downward trend among the students in the younger classes, the number of students in the younger classes. I would mention here that the counties, both Erie and Lorain County, do projections of birth rates based on all the factors and demographics within the community, and what you see here is what it's going to be for Vermilion, for a lot of reasons. So I want to talk first about some of the trends in our revenue and kind of just a general look at our budget picture. So in this picture, the blue line, which is the lower one, is our revenue over a period of years from 2023 on the left-hand side to, I believe, 2030 on the right-hand side. So that the orange line is blue line's revenue, the orange line is expenditure. So the expenditures have been above the revenue for several years. When the orange is above the blue in any given year, we're deficit spending. In the red box, I've highlighted this fiscal year and the 4 after it to illustrate the main point of what we're trying to accomplish here today and the main reason that we're here. And with the other reductions that we are enacting this year, those lines are getting farther apart. Next school year, that's the one that is to the left of the box, they're $500,000 apart. 3 years after that, they're $3.5 million apart. To give you a little context for that, our budget has been between $26, $27 million a year for the past several years. Okay. I've got a screenshot here from Mr. Klingshire, who's our treasurer. The budget forecast that he does twice a year is required by the state. And there's been a summary slide. I've got a blown up version of it here that you'll be able to read in just a second. But if you've been to board meetings over the past few years, you've heard Justin sit right here and give the 5-year forecast twice a year. You might be wondering where those lines, the orange and blue lines, were off the left side of that chart before we got to where we are. Well, we've been aware that those lines are converging and crossing, and they crossed in the past couple of years. Here's a quote. As far back as 2022, this shows Justin was highlighting some of the items that we'll talk about here today. Facility investments and staffing levels. I cited the failure of the bond issue back on the 3rd slide. In this slide, I'm just pointing out that since 2022, Justin has been stating that aging facilities were going to put pressure on the general fund because we don't have a permanent improvement levy. We're one of only 56 districts in the state of Ohio that don't. This board recognized that a year ago when you approved the bond issue for the ballot, all of you. He has also been saying that we need to keep an eye on our staffing levels. That's the second highlighted portion there. This is from 2022. I know that we're here today to act on reductions of teaching positions, but we've shed positions in the teaching ranks in administration and among our classified staff since that time. I'll be detailing that here in a moment. When it comes time to talk about reductions, one of the first things people say, understandably, is that the board should cut anything but people first. This simple pie chart shows why that is possible, but only on a limited basis. In our district and in every public school district, salaries and benefits, which is the blue part of the pie, are an overwhelming percentage of a school's budget. The other portion are things that are finite resources like buses and technology and cleaning supplies and textbooks. We can figure out ways to squeeze every penny out of this part, the red piece. You'll hear about some of the things that are part of that in just a moment. But there's only a limit to what you can accomplish chipping away at the red part of the budget. I asked Justin for a list. We've been talking for some time about these things, of course. Some of the things that are putting pressure on our budget, some of the costs that are rising, these are the few of the things that we've been talking about. Healthcare benefits. This list probably won't be a surprise for those of you that do the bills at your own house. Healthcare benefits, top of the list. I'll come back to that in a second. Things like utilities. Gas and electric are more expensive now. Supplies. Really not much of anything that we buy that makes the school district run is cheaper in the area of supplies. Food. I'll come back to that in a minute. We know about grocery prices. Purchase services. I'll come back to that in a second as well, because that's just kind of things that we buy from other entities and professionals and businesses around the community. Maintenance. Fixing anything is expensive. You know, what used to be at my house a $100 plumbing call starts at $250 now. Things like this affect us in a big way because we've got 3 bigger buildings, 2 of which are a little bit older, so things cost more. Curriculum. So a lot of what we have is electronic curriculum, things that are accessible to our students on their Apple MacBooks. And here's what I'd say after being the curriculum director for 3 years. What I've seen is that after COVID, when everybody bought electronic curriculum because it was really the only way to do business, in that environment, many makers of electronic curriculum tools and software and websites are jacking up their prices. They're going up 5%, 10%, 15%, and we have a lot of that throughout our district in addition to books and regular kind of curriculum that you might think about. But that is something that is skyrocketing in cost. The cost of labor, everything. Classified staff, teaching staff, administrative staff, that's going up as well. Let me get back to healthcare. We spent a lot of time talking about this one, and not a lot of time doing anything about it because, like you, we're really limited in what we can do about it. The blue bars on there are a cost of a family plan, what our teachers and any of our employees pay and what the district pays for their health insurance. The orange lines are a family plan, and this is kind of this chart goes from years and years ago until the current year. The orange family plan, the blue single plan are both the same in that they're up 160% over that time frame. And that's going to go up next year, if we're lucky, 5%. And that's a lot of money. Healthcare costs us a lot of money. So if you own a business and you have workers that have healthcare insurance through your business, you know this. It's a huge cost factor. Okay. As we talk about budget reductions, things that we've done over a period of time, I mentioned purchase services. So one of the first things that we did when we kind of started looking at all the things that we were buying and looking for ways that we could trim the budget was Justin and I sat down with Sean Bergman, our technology director, and Karen Blackman, our director of student services, pupil services, who oversees kind of all of the special ed and many of the other things that we buy, professional services like speech therapy and things like that. We went through everything that this district spends money on in purchase services. every single line, to look for ways that we could maximize the effectiveness of it, or we could get it somewhere cheaper, and we could buy something cheaper than we're buying, find another vendor for it, go to a competitive bid process to get it. And I have good news and bad news about that. The bad news is we didn't find much of anything that we could cut, that we could get a cheaper way. The good news is that's because we're already getting it very efficiently and for a price that is really hard to beat in the private sector. I'll give you a couple of examples of this. When we got to the line item for our copier contract, schools run on paper, by the way, if you didn't know that. We got to the line about our copier contract. I had not looked at our copier contract before, and I said, that's not really how much we pay for our copier contract. And Justin said, yes, it is, and kind of described the process that we had used to get the copier contract that we had. Sean is excellent at his job as the director of technology. All our kids have MacBooks, and we talked about the expense of that. Back during COVID, when the district got a lot of its MacBooks, got a lot of its Apple laptops, which are expensive, we got on a cycle with Apple and with some resale companies that allow us to sell them back to a company after we use them for a couple of years. Is it 3 or 4? 4 years. 4 years. I was a technology director in my old district, so I know a little bit about laptops, a little bit about Chromebooks and things like that. I came in thinking Chromebooks are a cheaper choice. Certainly we're going to find an area there where it's possible to cut. What we sell back Apple laptops for is amazing. I've never seen anything like it. I really did not believe that we actually give them a 4-year-old laptop that a student, a 13-year-old, has been using for 4 years, and they pay us that much back for it. The bottom line with that one is it expensive to get on the Apple train? Absolutely. And that was done with some COVID funds, back in the day. Once you're on it, it's a good bargain. Still, we ended up talking about some ways that we can maximize that, maybe using other devices when these expire at the younger grades, and that's something we're going to continue to talk about. Purchase services is something we'll continue to look at. We have looked at every time you hire somebody who's a kind of a professional speech therapist, school psychologist, and things like that, you have 2 choices. You can either contract with a local educational service center to buy it, or you can employ someone yourself. In the areas where it's cheaper for us to employ someone ourselves, we do. In those areas where it's cheaper for us to go to North Point ESC or Lorain County ESC, we have a choice of 2. We can bargain, one against the other and take a look. We use both, and we get the cheapest one. So that's some of the ways that we've kind of maximized the efficiency of our operation in that. Not that work is ever done. It's never done. We'll keep looking at that as time goes on. The purchase services. When it comes to personnel reductions, you will see that this reflects fiscal year 24, 25, and 26 in the top left, and down the left-hand side, the number of administration, the number of teachers, and the number of classified staff that we have. So the middle column, the wider one, shows the number of reductions that we've made since 2024. So what you'll see there is that we went from 15 to 13 administrators, which 13%, 0.3% of our overall administrative staff in 2024, since 2024. We've gone down by 6 teachers since that time, which is 4.6% of the teaching staff that we have, which that's the biggest group. The biggest group of employees we have in our district is staff, as teachers. It's about 50% of them. And then finally down at the classified staff, it's gone down by 1 since 2024, and that doesn't include the one that's on the paper later on the agenda, but for about 1% of that. So when people have left, when people have retired, when people have taken a job somewhere else, we've looked at every position long and hard to see if it's something we absolutely positively have to have. I'll give you an example of that. We have a number of intervention specialists who work with our students with special needs in all 3 of our buildings. When I got here, we had quite a few of those. As the needs have shifted from building to building, we've transferred people from one building to the other, and then some of those numbers that are in that teacher category come from us looking at caseloads that are low enough among those teachers, like the number of kids that they have, or we can reduce one and still provide just as adequate, just as equal level of service as we have with a greater number. And so as those people have left, we've not replaced them. Among the administration line, there's one I can speak to fairly informed about, and that's me. I was a curriculum director and assistant superintendent before I got here. Since October, I've been the superintendent. I was not replaced. Now I'm superintendent, assistant superintendent, and curriculum director. I'm one of the two most expensive employees in the district. That's not just true here, it's true anywhere. And I'm doing the job of the two. I kind of recognized back before I even talked to the board about becoming a superintendent that, where we think we're headed, that might be something that can be done. So that's one of the two there. Other reductions. These next couple of slides are things that we are currently talking about. I put these in the current category. Some of these, there's a conclusion. Some of these, we kind of know a direction we're going to go. But a lot of them are going to come back at a future board meeting where we're going to sit here and we're going to say, how about this reduction? We're going to act on it. The board is going to act on it. I'm going to ask for their approval for other reductions. But we've been working on them for a while. In athletics, Andy Stillman, our athletic director, has met with all of our head coaches to talk to them about items within each of their individual sports budgets that they felt like they could trim, and he and Justin and I had a conversation about that. We've looked at our pay to participate fee. We have a ton of students here involved in activities. I don't know exactly how many, but up and down the line, everything from chess club to football to marching band to show choir, concert choir, all of our groups like that. We have a ton of kids involved in more than one activity. One of the reasons why is that we've incentivized that by having a pay to participate fee that is much lower for the second, third, fourth activity that you participate in, right? That's a good thing. But since the pay to participate has been, was first kind of voted on here and included as part of our program, it hasn't been raised. It hasn't been raised. So you can look around at other districts and see some districts that are lower than ours, but you can see a whole lot of them that are higher than ours. In the current, situation, that's something that we've got to look at. So that'll be something we'll be talking about too. There are other cost reductions, things that Mr. Stone is going to be looking at between now and the beginning of next school year when sports start for next year. Supplemental contracts. Every adult who does something with individual or groups of kids during or after the school day that's outside of their teaching role is paid what's called a supplemental contract. To reduce those, to kind of reduce the overall budget hit of those, because that needs to be done, we've got to talk to the Vermilion Teachers Association. It's an item that is negotiated into our contract with them, and so that's something that's got to happen over a period of time. The first part of that is actually going to happen on Wednesday this week. Curriculum. We started the year saying that we were going to purchase a new math curriculum, which is typically a 5 or 6 year subscription contract. And kind of as time went on, once that levy failed in November, I kind of started looking in other directions for this, kind of using what we've got and maximizing what we've got. As a kind of point of comparison, last year we paid $250,000 for a K-5 ELA curriculum. So this one would have been probably K through 7 or 8, and I think it probably would have cost every bit of that much money. That's that much money that we're not going to pay. Building budgets. Justin has given our principals kind of a target percentage to cut within their building budget, which pays for kind of everything else outside of what we talk about in these presentations within their buildings. And they're going to come back and we're going to talk about that next month before next month's board meeting. We're looking at the technology tools that we use, whether it be, or not technology, but like workbooks and things like that too. This is curriculum within classes like workbooks or Lexia or Alex or others. I've asked our principals, and they're talking with our grade level chairs and department chairs right now about what's vital to have as opposed to what's just nice to have. We're going to come back with that list as well. materials and supplies. Right now, our principals are also examining the materials and supplies, things that they buy within their building. Justin did some good research into kind of what's being done at some other schools. Found a couple of good examples of schools that, kind of, I think, spend less on supplies with a similar, or just a little bit less, fewer number of kids. And so we're kind of talking about that. This leads to an area that's not really a reduction, but it's probably going to be one of the few ways that you notice in this presentation that have to do with actually raising revenue without a tax increase for people, and that is an increase in student fees. Technically, student fees are for consumables. Right now, if your kid's in a kindergarten classroom, that means all the things that you can imagine in a kindergarten that are consumable. Well, there's nothing in a kindergarten classroom that's not consumable. Everything is consumable. You don't want any of it back. But there are also things that we have, like third graders get a My Math workbook, and then all the way through 7th grade they get a math workbook. Those have been paid for out of the curriculum budget since I've been here, and I think forever. And I've never seen one that's less than $20 or $25. Multiply that times 100, 115 kids in a class across a grade level, you get an idea of why that kind of stuff is so expensive. We understand that there's a limit to what we can ask families to pay for fees. Almost 40% of our families have a free and reduced lunch, so they pay a very reduced amount of fees or no fees anyway. So there's a limit to how much raising those kinds of things is going to make money for us and not put families who are already in a tough spot in a tougher spot. But that's something we've got to consider. In transportation, I just talked to our transportation director this morning, Amber Stoller, and she and Justin and I met. We've talked about this in the past month. We've delayed the purchase of a bus, and we have delayed the purchase of a van, just kind of due to the spot we're in. Vans and buses are two of those things that are really expensive, but you can't use them past the end of their useful life. Well, we're stretching out the useful life by another year for these, and that's a big ticket item. A bus that is equipped to handle wheelchairs, which is the one we're looking at, is $148,000, and a van that hauls enough passengers to take our kids to private schools and things like that is $74,000. So you can see how those kind of things add up real quick. Finally, in that area, we are mulling over one of the other few areas where we can, kind of raise funds without raising taxes, which is looking at school lunch prices. We've kept our school lunch prices as low as possible by law for at least the time that I've been here, probably a long time. And this is the first year in a while that that budget for school lunches, the cafeteria budget, is probably going to be really close to being in the red at the end of the year. Our cafeterias operate very efficiently, they're phenomenal. A lot of kids eat the food from our cafeterias, which is good, and that usually goes very well. But this takes me back to what I said about food costs. You've been to the grocery, so you know what that's like. We're kind of faced with the same thing that everybody else is faced with. So I think we need to look at school lunch prices. Technically, school lunch prices is something that the superintendent or treasurer recommends to the board a little bit later in the school year as we get close to like looking into the next school year. All this brings me to today's recommended reductions. These are the ones that are listed on the superintendent's report that I've actually recommended. I want to say a couple of things about them. Since the time that I took over in October, which was followed by the failure of the bond issue, Justin and I have been talking about our current financial situation and the impact of legislation that's kind of happened since the budget bill last year as it made its way through the State House. The final decision for this proposal was mine, though I asked for recommendations from building principals and then collaborated with them as a group to arrive at the list that you see on the screen and is on our agenda for today. Something else I mentioned about this. The terms of our contract with the Vermilion Teachers Association drives the timing of this proposal. So the question may occur to you, why, if you're looking at all these other cuts over this period of weeks and months, why is this happening now? Well, after your vote, affected teachers may have the right to displace other teachers according to their union contract. And they have time to do so if we do this in February. We're doing it in February because any shuffling that might occur does occur. When it does, there'll still be opportunities for teachers to seek other teaching employment during the time of year when schools are looking for teachers. So that's why this is happening in February. This is not the end. Not even close. I just wanted to kind of wrap this part up by talking about some things that I think we'll be recommending in the future. I can't be specific because they're not official yet, but there are going to be, between now and the end of the year, other resignations or retirements. It's just every year there is. It's this time of year. I know of a couple of these that will be on upcoming board meetings already, but they're not official. Based on the needs of students, these open positions may go unfilled, and when people leave, and they most may also be filled by teachers who fill the positions who are being reduced today. So teachers who are on my recommended list of reductions may be eligible to fill some of those positions. I'll be letting the board know about the results of some of the other reductions that I've mentioned, kind of coming back to update everybody on that, and or asking for all of your approval as appropriate on things like paid participate or lunch prices. There are other non-teacher related personnel moves that may happen as well in that time, so we'll be talking about that. Wanted to sum up by saying this first bullet point is what got us here now. The issue on our budget, the pressure on our budget that was caused by the failure of the bond issue, plus the rising costs that we've had over a period of time. Second, today's cuts are part of a whole list of things that are going to be cut. I've detailed some of these and you'll be hearing about more later. And then finally, these proposed reductions are sufficient to make our budget balanced for now if the November renewal levy passes. What I said at the beginning may have been counterintuitive. I want to say this, and this has to do with the renewal levy in November. It will actually lower local property taxes slightly. Voting for it lowers property taxes slightly. How's that possible? Justin and I, after weeks and months of trying to digest just what's coming down the pike from our legislature and look at what impact that's going to have on the district, kind of finally put together a 17-minute video that explained this, and we're going to give people access to it 4 minutes ago. You get that QR code, you can see it. It's a YouTube video and our voices are on it, so you probably want to wait till later, or never if you're, But we are trying to explain what's about to happen, and what's happening right now is unfortunately, it's just kind of a shadow of what's going to happen at that point. So, with that, I'm sure President Benson that there are people with questions or comments, people that would like to speak.